Good afternoon. My name is Dina, DiLorenzo. As you heard, I am the president of Guggenheim Investments. If you don't know about Guggenheim Partners, I'll tell you a little bit about that. We are a global investment advisory firm that specializes in fixed income, private credit, and alternatives with $330 billion in assets under management. And I'm not going to take up too much time about me and my firm, but I will say this. 36% of our firm is represented by females. The president is a female, and the CIO is a female. So today we're going to talk about how can women in finance drive global economic growth. And I am so honored, and thankful for FII and the Kingdom for inviting us here to discuss this important topic and ways that we can collaborate and work with our allies globally to continue to advance women, not just in the financial services community, but also in leadership roles that drive decision making. I wouldn't even be able to describe the accomplishments of my distinguished panelists. And I believe in storytelling. I feel as though when an individual has an opportunity to tell their story, it has such meaning and depth. So I'd like to start with my panelists. Please tell us about yourself and tell the audience about your story so that we can jump into our questions and go over the topic.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Rola Manneh, and I'm the CEO for Standard Chartered Bank in the Middle East and Pakistan. I've been with the bank for 5 years. Previously, I was in a local bank. I have over 26 years of banking experience. And as Standard Chartered, when it comes to diversity and inclusion, this is part of our DNA. We're in 55 markets as a bank across Asia, Middle East, Europe, and Americas, and we have 14 global CEOs. The senior woman representation in the bank is above 36%. And our mandate is to empower more senior women and take them up to the CEO level. And our board we have a very diversified board as well. So D&I, diversity and inclusion, is part of our D&I across all our policies and processes in the bank.
Yes?
Yeah, well, I'm Sheikha Al-Bahar. I'm the Deputy Group CEO of National Bank of Kuwait. I joined MBK since I graduated for such a long time. MBK is, a group that currently presents in 13 countries, and we have too many initiatives to empower women. And I'm very proud about MBK Rise. It's been even registered, and this program is basically to give the chance to females within MBK and other institutions, including other banks. We even invited competition to the program. We finished the cohort 1. Now we are in the process to start cohort 2. So basically, this is part of our DNA as a contribution to the community to empower females. So this is it in a nutshell. I'll continue, supporting the female within MBK group, not just in Kuwait, but over the 13 countries with different cultures. We are in Asia, we are in Middle East, and GCC, and Europe as well, and States. So this is a great opportunity for me to give, a good hand for our females within not just Kuwait, but around the world.
Laura?
Thank you. My name is Laura Cha. I'm currently the senior advisor to the board of the Hong Kong Exchange. I was its chairman for 6 years, and I retire in April of this year due to term limit. My own career journey is slightly different from most women. I got married out of college, have kids, and then I went back to law school. So I started my legal career when I was 30 years old. I practiced law, and then I became a regulator, both in Hong Kong and in China. And in the last 20 years, I have been sitting on a variety of boards, also on the public sector in Hong Kong as well. And in both the private and the public sector, one of my key goal and initiative, I've always been trying to promote women in different positions. And I'm glad to say that during my tenure on the stock exchange, I was obviously the first woman chairman. At that time, we have a woman CFO, a woman head of corporate communication, a head of HR, head of listing, head of markets. So a large number of division heads were women during my tenure. And I'm glad to say that one of them is now our CEO. So we have a woman CEO at the exchange. And I will talk more about the initiative, what the exchange has done a little later.
Great.
So for me, it's such an honor to be the only man on this panel of women in finance, and I see it as a really proud moment because I'm with very distinguished women. My story really starts in Togo, and I also have the honor to be on the stage for the second time today. I was here this morning as well, but talking more from an African perspective. But I would define my story as really a story of the American dream, because I came from Togo and I moved to New York as a penniless immigrant 25 years ago, and my dream was to launch a black culture-focused media company. And within a few years, my company had grown, and I was able to get funding from Goldman Sachs, where Dina used to work, and grow my company into the point of selling it in 2010. And at that time, I took 10 years off to produce films, to angel invest, mostly in women and people of color. And I started teaching at Harvard and just really learning about what the next chapter in my life should be. And the reason I'm really excited about this panel is, looking back at my career, I really have stood on the shoulders of women who have been pivotal figures in my life. And 3 years ago, I launched a venture capital firm with my longtime mentor, Dick Parsons. It's called the Equity Alliance, and we only invest in women and people of color. So it's a specific choice, and I will explain a bit later why we decided to do that.
Great. Well, thank you, Dina.
Dina.
Not often I'm on a panel with another Dina. I'm so delighted to be here. I think this might be my 8th or 9th FII.
Wow, congratulations.
Including attending the first one. And it's been such a remarkable platform that brings so many world leaders. I know His Excellency Yasser Al-Rumayyan had this vision of doing just that, and it's amazing where it is today. And frankly, I think Richard Atias and Cecilia were a big part of the HERizon piece of it. And I think it's just absolutely critical and commendable that we have a whole track now on investing in women in business and around the world. So I'm actually from the region originally. I was born in Cairo, Egypt. My family immigrated when I was a young girl to the United States, and I had a long career in government, and then about 16 years at Goldman Sachs, where I had the privilege of working on a number of the programs that led to the economic empowerment of women globally, as well as a lot of our sovereign business, where we saw so many emerging women, frankly, leading in the largest pools of capital around the world. Today, I'm vice chair and co-president of BDT and MSD Capital, where we actually work with about 200 families and founders, generational families that are transferring wealth, that are investing. Most of the businesses are private enterprises. And one of the things that is becoming very clear is how often it is the daughters and sisters that are emerging to take on these family legacies and, frankly, doing remarkable jobs.
Well, those are all amazing stories, and congratulations, and thank you for sharing with the audience. So I think we've heard from the previous sessions throughout the morning that there's a significant amount of evidence of the positive impact of increased female participation in finance. And I think we also heard this morning, Jenny Johnson was pointing out some really important facts about women's success rate when they are empowered. And I'd love to hear Rola go into more significance. I mean, you're, as the first Emirati woman to lead an international bank, successfully transforming the bank's UA business into one of the top 3 markets globally, right? How do we get women to be more empowered and acknowledged in not just finance, but in decision-making roles that drive global economic change, like you did so fabulously?
Thank you. Well, it's a full journey. First of all, I think it's very important that whatever we do, as males or females, is that we be passionate about. And it's really important to believe in yourself, because if you're not passionate, you will not be able to take that leap of faith. And you have to take certain risks. And when I joined Standard Chartered, I joined it as it's my second job only from a local to an international bank. So, and I joined as a CEO. So there's that learning curve as a CEO. But what comforts me is that I was very hungry as a person. I believed in myself, and I wanted to break the glass ceiling. You know, despite everything around you. There were many times in my career in banking that I would be the only woman in a room and my other male colleagues, but that never bothered me. Now, this time, it is much easier for this younger generation because everybody is working around women empowerment, and different organizations, you know, they have their D&I strategy. So if I look at Standard Chartered, we have our D&I strategy, which is in every country, is run by the CEO. And from that angle, it's not only women, it's a committee of men and women. How do we empower women to come up the curve? Right. How do we make sure that they have all the tools in terms of their training, skilling, and in certain businesses, you would find less women. How do we make sure we position them there to feel comfortable and grow in their business at the same time? I mean, whether they want to be frontline or middle office, but how do we make sure that they're skilled in what they are doing? Right. So very important that you take that step forward and be curious and learn, really learn, as well as in the moment when you start managing teams, how do you lead a team? And this is the big step. How do you make sure that you show empathy as well as you make sure that you deliver on your targets, you and the team? As women, we're really good in team building, teamwork. We work as a team. We do shy away sometimes in just profiling ourselves, and that would be my advice. We should not shy away. We should profile ourselves. We should come forward and, you know, reward ourselves for the successes that we have made.
That's great, thank you. And so what I mentioned earlier when I think we were all talking in the green room was the spheres of influence, right? The workplace and the workforce, the marketplace, the society. I'd like to turn it to Dina, if I may, because this is the whole thing we want to talk about is the collaboration and how those additional spheres of influence help us take it to the next level. So as Deputy Secretary Advisor, you worked closely with the Kingdom to coordinate Vision 2030 and the US government. Please talk about those key pillars and how that sphere of influence can have a huge impact on maybe a lot of topics we're going to talk about at this time next year, right?
Yes. Well, actually, I did. I had the privilege of serving as Deputy National Security Advisor for Strategy under President Trump, and worked on the very, of course, first trip to Riyadh, but beyond that, many months coordination with the Kingdom that was really, at the time, rolling out Vision 2030. And it was a very inspirational goal, a set of economic, social, and political reforms that, you know, we believed at the time, if realized, would have a transformative effect in the Middle East and, frankly, around the world. And while any kind of huge vision like that has some starts and stops, we always felt in the U.S. that one of the most important things for our national security is to have a strong and solid relationship with the Kingdom and to see them realize these important reforms. one huge focus, of course, or women. Women working in Saudi Arabia, and frankly, women investing around the world. I'm so inspired to see how many female entrepreneurs that come now from the kingdom, many young women, a robust workforce, and frankly, a real commitment to also investing in sectors where many women are leading. A lot of the work that you talked about, and having a focus on investing in other female CEOs and entrepreneurs around the world. You know, we were in these halls in 2018, I believe, in that first summit. And one of the things that I remember so clearly was working with His Excellency Khalid Al-Falah, and some of us met with him this morning, and he was so determined to ensure that we brought the hundreds of billions of dollars of investment from the United States to the kingdom, and vice versa. And I remember looking over and seeing Mary Barra, the CEO of GM, seeing Jenny Johnson. Today, you know, we saw Ruth Porat. I think there has been a very significant commitment in not only important partnerships in sectors and industries that matter to the kingdom, but also with who the leadership is in U.S. business that's coming here. And I think that that partnership between government, the private sector, and multilateral institutions is one of the most important ways to see that kind of change grow.
Yep, I agree. Laura, I think you actually had something to add to that as it relates to what you've observed related to regulatory support advancing women. Do you want to jump in on what Dina was saying a little bit? And
Yeah, I think in Asia, the women participation in business and in government is less than what we would like to see. We have made great strides in the last few years. Let me talk about on the corporate side first. One of the indicators often is how many percentage, what percentage of the women are on boards, big corporate boards. And that is something that the exchange, as a regulator of the market, can do. So we have been bringing in changes, and not so we stop at quota, because I think quota is very difficult in the sense that all our rule changes are subject to consultation. And I don't want when we consult quotas and all the response come back and said quota is not good, then we won't move forward. So what we have done is by steps, we have eliminated, for example, we have stopped any company, new company coming to the market from having only a single gender board. So in that way, we brought in, you know, now we have women. And then we'll phase out in another 2 years, there will be no company on the Hong Kong Exchange that can be on a single gender board. That's what we're doing. But in terms of, you know, regulatory government support, there isn't, in Hong Kong as an example, there are a lot of women executives and women in government. But what we haven't been able to see are women rising in position where they are in a decision-making role. And we often ask ourselves, why? And obviously, all of us here had heard that in the past, the traditional response you get is a woman up to a certain stage want to have children, want to have a family, so they stop their career. But I think times are changing. Yeah. People now with much more flexibility at workplace, and the attitude of the community has changed. So we are able to now bring in more women executives who are on a journey that will prepare them to reach the position of influence and the position of power. Government policy helps, but it cannot be, you know, favoring one gender. And that's very interesting, because when you have certain things favoring one gender, the other gender, the male, I'll give you an example. When I first became chairman of the exchange, I had, once a month, I had tea with all my women executives, junior and senior. After 3 months, my men executives said, that's not fair. You're only having lunch with them. That's reverse discrimination. So now I had, you know, before I stepped down, I had it with everyone. So we have to have that balance. And I think also to have mentors are also very important in guiding, you know, nurturing the younger women to come up the stream. Policy-wise, I think the government has come out and said, you know, they're really gender blind, it's merit-based. And that, again, will be shown by those women who are in position, can demonstrate that they are able, that they have the ability, and that is much more convincing. And so I think the preparation, the pipeline, the exposure, the nurturing, the mentoring, it all is part of the package.
Great. Sheikha, I think you have something to add to that, right? Tell us a little bit about the cultural factors that play a role in some of these government policies that you've observed in your role.
Yeah. Well, basically, as all of us know, we've been talking about women empowerment for such a long time. But unfortunately, achievements are really very, very minimal. So it has to do with culture. And let's, deep dive, we have to do deep dive analysis, why it's happening. It has to start from the family. So it's a cultural issue. And when we raise our kids, we have to tell them that female and male are equal. You have to work as a team rather than to be, a male society or country. So we have maybe I believe we have to come up with certain laws, but I don't believe in quota. Certain laws to put pressure on public sector. I don't believe that private sector has any issue with females empowerment. Because I started with a private sector, it's a bank owned by merchant families of Kuwait, there were no issues at all. I mean, I was able to, go above the ladder with any hurdles. They believe in contribution, basically. And I believe females, they work very hard to prove themselves. It's by nature. It's, pressure from the culture and the community. So I've noticed that in the public sector, there is weakness. And at the end of the day, it's leadership. Look what's happening in Saudi. I mean, it's a great movement and evolving and achievements and change. I mean, great transformation. So this has to come with a leadership that believes in capabilities of females and to give them the opportunity to contribute. Right. I mean, there are a lot of, studies and research confirm that, contribution of females, improve results.
That's right.
Right? And they are innovative enough to come up with the right solutions. But again, I mean, in my capacity as a group CEO, we are taking care of the youth. And when I talk about youth, it's a combination of females and males. So let's give this impression and mindset. Right. We are working as a team. Right. We are not females and not males. It's a combination of females and males. So let's work on that. This is very, very important. We in MBK currently, we have 40% of, our staff is females. Now on the upper ladder, it's around 29. Okay. So basically the vision or the strategy to take it up to over 39% within the coming 5 years. Right. So we should have a target. This is the most important. And there should be kind of leadership, believes in, the capacity and the ability of female.
And I think, Claude, this is what we talked about this morning outside the lounge, right? Like encouraging powerful women who are you're sitting next to today to work with allies in order to encourage financial literacy, collaboration, and empowerment for the next generation. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I do, Dina, but I don't necessarily want to rain on this parade, but I have a bit of a contrarian view. And it comes from the fact that, I've never applied for a job. I've always been an entrepreneur or founder, so I always had to raise money. So I spent a lot of time in investment banks, and I met two kinds of women in finance. The first category is what I'll just call the women who are crabs in the barrel. And these are the kind of women who do not ever want to lift any other women up. They want to be the only one shining. And I've met a few of those women, I have to say. The second category is what I'll call the Dina category. And I have to tell you, I've been waiting so many years to meet Dina, and I finally got to meet her today here in Riyadh. This is definitely not my last trip to Saudi Arabia. This woman has done so much for other women, from the 10,000 Women Initiative. And I saw at Goldman Sachs, there was a group of women, a very small group of women who were all about the community, the mentorship that you described, thinking of how they can elevate the game by sticking together, by learning through this apprenticeship model. And another one of my investors in the Equity Alliance, who you work with, Jackie Zahner, who was one of the first women partners at Goldman, she created a group called She Money, and she did very well at Goldman. She was a pre-IPO partner, and the average pre-IPO partner made 100 million, I think, right, or something like that. So she did very well.
I wasn't one.
You weren't one. But she created She Women to foster liberation through financial literacy for women, because let's not forget that women only make 82% of what men make in most Western economies. And I just want to wrap by saying the reason we created the Equity Alliance is because if we just look at the inequities in the world of venture capital where we work, we look at black women who make up let's talk about the United States, for instance, 7.8% of the US population, they get 0.1% of the venture capital funding. So if women don't band together with allies, male allies, to help to change this game, this playing field will never be leveled.
Agree. So we're out of time, but I think we could squeeze in. We could take any last comments before we end the panel. I mean, this was all wonderful, and I think we've enlightened the audience significantly about ways that we can take it to the next level. But any closing comments?
I think
Rola?
it's the tone from the top. I mean, if I look at the governments in the region, they all are supporting gender diversity. So things have improved if I look back 10, 15 years ago. What we want basically is we want to, and this is where will know that we're equal. Now the gap is big. It's getting smaller, but the moment we stop having such forums, talking about women, talking about diversity, having special forums about diversity, the boards should be automatically equal, not through quotas. But as long as we all support each other as women and men, because there's a lot to learn from the men. Because don't forget, as my colleague said, we have to balance bringing up a family and the career progression. So it's all about how do you balance this. You have to come from a supportive family, of course, but it's all balancing all this and as an individual really moving forward and, breaking that glass ceiling. The more of us do this, then 20, 30 years down the line, we will not be talking about how do we empower women.
Hopefully. Well, basically, as I mentioned, I'm education fan. It has to be started from, as I said, scratch. Let's build the new generation in believing in diversity and inclusion.
Yes.
Start with education. Lee Kuan Yew, when he decided to transform Singapore, he started with micromanagement families. So we have to work on the mindset of families. I mean, they are equal. So I believe until we reach this level, let's come up with certain laws, like, easing some taxes for institutions, working on inclusion and diversification, increasing, the contribution of females within the workforce and so on. So it's a combination of private sector and public sector. But I hope that next FII won't talk about inclusion of females.
Yeah, Laura?
For me, I think it comes down to culture, and culture comes from the top.
Yes.
You have to really emanate that attitude, you're really positive, not only just talk the talk, but you have to walk the walk.
Yes.
And I think leading by example, to me, in my past career, is so important. You see people who could be saying certain things, but in their practice it's not quite. But it's only those who are practicing what they talk and they preach that get followers, and that's how you generate a next generation.
Excellent.
I want to say, in the spirit of not just talking the talk, but also walking the walk,
Yeah.
I think that I see a lot of very powerful people in this room, very influential people in this room. If each person in this room just takes one young woman under their wing and helps them in this apprenticeship model and invests in them time and mentorship, I feel like that could really change the game ultimately. That's what I've been doing, really, because I could have never achieved what I did in America if it hadn't been for these women who believed in me and my potential. So it's time to pay it forward.
That's an excellent point.
That is.
And Dina.
Well, obviously, it takes the leadership of many incredible women, but you know the saying, a few good men make a huge difference. And that means government leaders, like in the kingdom, who've prioritized this issue. It's CEOs of my current firm, of Goldman Sachs, where I used to work, but people who see the importance of the power of investing in women. You know, one of the most important things is to not look at this issue just as a human rights issue or a justice issue. This is really smart economics. The more that women are part of the workforce, the more that women are investing as entrepreneurs. So the voices of men really matter. And the actions of men matter even more. Hafiz Ibrahim, a famous Egyptian poet, once said, "When you educate a woman, you create a nation." And I think more and more men are beginning to see how wise that investment is for their countries and their companies.
Great. Well, 5 panelists. We went a little bit over, but we did it.
We did it.
Yeah, we got it done. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and to FII and the Kingdom. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll end here.
All right.